So what you just saw was a glimpse of how quickly AI products are being built today. Small teams are building incredible, ambitious systems. Naturally, the next question becomes, where is the ecosystem heading? What problems are worth solving? Where are the biggest opportunities emerging? To share that perspective, please welcome Poorvi Vijay, Principal at Elevation Capital. Let us welcome Poorvi with a big round of applause.
Hey everyone, hi. I thought people were more excited to see demos, but probably you'll have to hear a VC chat now. We were thinking about, first of all, I'm Poorvi, I lead AI investments at Elevation Capital, invest in early stage AI companies. So I was thinking about what would be relevant today for all of you, right? And where are we investing, give you a macro view of what's happening across the globe. Someone actually just asked me outside, what does it feel like to be investing in AI right now? And my answer to that is simple. If I don't know how many of us, at least I was not, I was in kindergarten then, but when the internet was being built, or when AWS was launched, when the first iPhone was dropped, I think if we were investing then, I think I would be been very, very happy. But it feels like today, 25, 26 is again in that moment. There is a very, very clear platform shift. We are seeing insane amount of activity. We are seeing insane amount of founders building something of value, and something big is going to happen. I am a true believer of AI. I don't think AI is a hype. I'm sure everyone sitting here agrees with the same. So what does it mean to invest in AI right now? Trust me, I know it's very hard when investors say that, hey, they are also having a hard time. We are working as hard because founders feel the urgency, we feel the urgency, and adrenaline goes both ways. So today I'm going to talk about one of the thesis areas we have been doubling down on, where we are excited, and talk to you about what we are seeing in the ecosystem. Okay. Yeah, I think the meme is funny, but not so funny as well. The problems are very, very real, and I'm sure given the technical audience here, most of us have built AI applications, AI agents, and all of us know that to build something in production, it really breaks. It's not as simple as building something, and I saw a bunch of demos which were very interesting, but the integration brittleness, the memory management, state management, auth, everything breaks when you actually put something in production, so it's very real. So it's not about just something that covers on top, but everything in between that we really, really care about, and we feel that there's a lot of value in building there. I think a lot of us, there was a popular MIT report. This graph on the left comes from there. Whether you believe it or not, a lot of it is true, probably more than 95%. The MIT report spoke about 95% of pilots not going into production. Hopefully that stat has increased. But I think the intent and outcome of AI, still there is a big gap, right? And as I was talking about, it is all about everything that happens in between that model and what you see as an end use case, whether it's your integration brittleness, it's your memory management, it's your state management, it's your compliance, it's your cost overruns, it's a bunch of things, right? And this is where we sit. So everything in between, whether it's observability, orchestration, memory, context, or each one of this is a big category to be building a company on, and hopefully a category defining one as well. So this is the part that I am personally very, very excited about, that hey, how do you make sure that you take the raw intelligence of a model and build everything around it in the middleware? And that's what we call middleware as. Middleware is a very loose and a fuzzy term, but the way we define it internally is that everything, a connective tissue almost, that takes the raw intelligence of a model and then builds it into a real world use case application, which you can scale, right? So these are the things that we care about. These are the things that we want to spend more of our time on. And see, this is not the first time that's happening. A good question to ask is that, hey, why middleware? Why infrastructure? Why are you going so deep on it? One of the reasons is, this is not new. In any platform shift, infrastructure, middleware has captured a huge amount of value. In the cloud era, Twilio, Stripe, Segment, overall, just between some of these companies, there were a market cap of 400 billion. In AI, we're just getting started, We are all every day we are thinking about what's that next value of AI, what's that next segment of AI, where can we invest, and that is the reason that hey, apart from applications and models, this is as a category and a stack becomes super relevant. And this is, I think that's fine. I think there's an interesting one on the why now as well, right? As an investor, I have been asked that question, and that's a question that I ask every single day, that, hey, you don't want to be ahead of the curve, way too ahead of the curve. You don't want to be behind the curve. You want to be exactly on the curve. It's very important for founders and investors to be investing in a market at the right time, at the right place. And this actually is very interesting. And just to elaborate a little bit more on what this chart means, that in any platform shift, apps and infrastructure always go in cycles. It is almost not that, hey, all the apps will get created, then infrastructure will get created, all the infrastructure will get created, only then apps, you will create new apps. That's not, it has never happened that way, right? Almost think of it like, and this is just an example, I put it here. I mean, planes were invented before airports were built, right? You didn't need airports to build planes, but to take it to consumer adoption, to scale, you needed airports, you need air traffic controllers, you need airlines, etc. And that's what is happening in apps as well, right? So today, if I think about in any era, actually, if you think about there is a first breakout app that happens, then you scale the infrastructure to make sure that more of such apps can be created. Then there is a little bit of commoditization of that infrastructure because when you scale those apps, you realize that, hey, now there are no more new and more complex things that you need to solve for. And that is when a little bit more complex infrastructure that needs to be created. Once that infrastructure gets created, you actually start scaling more new apps. And this is a cycle that keeps on going. It is something that we have seen happen a lot more in the first apps as well. So if you remember when email, again, I was not there, but this is history. I think a lot of us know it. A lot of messaging email came about, and then they gave rise to infrastructure such as Ethernet, TCP, etc. Then the new age of portals, AOL sort of things started coming up. Then came your browser engine. Then your Amazon came up. And then, this is a cycle that kept on happening. And if you see, there is a lot of infrastructure that has gotten created over time because of this. This is what we call the middleware and infrastructure. Where are we today, right? And this is an important question. We saw the transformers of the world. We saw the birds of the world. This is what gave space to ChatGPT. ChatGPT was that first consumer breakout app that people started to know about. And once ChatGPT happened, then people started creating a lot of infrastructure and middleware because they started seeing there was a lot of, ChatGPT for X apps. There was this entire boom of a lot of wrappers, simple chatbots. Once people started creating them, then they realized, hey, there's so much that doesn't exist today, right? You need so much more middleware infrastructure to scale this. You need, now adoption is happening, you need actually, FinOps, you actually need compliance, you need something on observability, you need something to connect these things together, right? And that's when a lot of new companies starting getting built. Once these LangChains, VectorDBs of the world came about, then you started seeing a new age of apps really getting consumer adoption, Cursors of the world, Lovables of the world, Gleans of the world. And now in 2026, 25, 26, and hopefully it continues for another year or so, because all these segments that you used to take a couple of years before now is compressing. We see anything not more than 18 months, and that's the hard part that you and I both have. But today where we are, we believe that we are at the right time where more middleware and infrastructure needs to be created. And that is one of the reasons why we are heavily investing in that space. We've started seeing, and there are a lot of forces why it's all coming together, but we've started seeing more and more companies, more and more founders building in that space because the app adoption has started happening, right? More people are creating apps, and there's a lot of value that will accrue and is already accruing in that stack. But to make it scale, to really have that infinite power of what that entire AI adoption looks like in the world, there's so much more infrastructure and middleware that needs to be created. There's a lot of work that will happen in eval and testing, in observability, in cost intelligence, in agent-to-agent protocols, and so on and so forth. We'll go deep into each one of them, but wanted to make sure we land here that, hey, why this is the right time, and probably it's another 18 to 24 months when we start seeing that application layer started taking shape again. So right now is a great time if you're actually building in this space. What is really happening, right? Why? One is obviously the historical precedents and the way we have started seeing app infrastructure platform shifts. But the second is what is really happening in the ecosystem, the signals that we are getting that, hey, we will need a lot more middleware infrastructure which doesn't exist today. The first one is just where we are right now, right? If you think about 2023, there was chatbot wrappers that we had started creating. There was single model, single prompt, one call, and then you actually get something. It was that simple. Then you started thinking about RAG, you started thinking about Copilot. Probably you were doing 3, 5 calls. Then agentic architecture started coming up, right? You started building single agents. You're now doing planning, you're doing tool selection, you're doing execution, you're doing reasoning, you're doing reflection. So there are, again, a multiple calls that you're doing as tool calls, right? Now, I think since last year, we've started thinking and seeing a lot more multi-agent orchestration, which means that, hey, there is a finance agent, there's a supply chain agent, there's a CRM agent, and so on and so forth. Each agent and the number of things that you need to do, you're taking it to 100 plus calls. Each call is a point of failure if you don't manage it well, right? You're probably failing on observability, you're probably failing on whatever can go wrong there. So here there is a lot of, because of just the complexity of it, you really need to manage it, and that's where we feel that right now there is a lot of opportunity for making sure that the way agent economy is booming, we need to create infrastructure to make it happen. I think the second one is just the number of models as well, right? I think in 2023, we all felt that there was one winner. Clearly, that's not true anymore. Any new model, I'm not going to name which one, but I think all of us know that. Today, frontier open weight models lag behind the most competitive models just by a few months. That was not 2, 3 years back, right? And it's funny that when I say few years back, it's actually just 2, 3 years. Everything is changing in just 2, 3 years. But now it's come back from 2, 3 years to 2 months, 3 months. Any open frontier weight model is actually able to match performance in some shape and form to the frontier model in just a couple of months. What that means is, and we did a survey and probably will release it at some point as well, most enterprises are using at least 5 to 7 models at any given point in time, and it could increase as well, right? They're probably fine-tuning some of their own models, some they're using open weight models, some they're using closed source models, every model for a different specific use case. What that means is that more and more infrastructure is now needed to control these models, right? The more things you use, the more middleware and infrastructure you will always need. And that's again started to happen in the last 18 months, where we've started seeing enterprises use so many different models, and they want to make sure that, hey, I'm able to switch out of these models or any of this infrastructure very, very quickly. And that is why we feel that, hey, right now, again, it is a great time to be building and thinking about this problem statement. The third one, again, is, it's just a funny meme here, but we did a CIO dinner recently, and I think the one thing that everyone agreed on was that, hey, everyone's asking that all of your engineers, and including us on boards, right? We are saying that for a company, all of your engineers should be using Claude. If you're not using Claude, you're not AI anymore, right? But nobody is talking about that, hey, what happens to that cost? At least in Valley, now, companies have gotten to a place where every single engineer is able to use $5,000 to $7,000 of tokens per month, which is a lot of cost. While there is efficiency, but what does that efficiency result into an ROI? I think we're not that clear, and that is a very, very strong mandate now that, hey, yes, you need to be using AI, but you also need to be using AI in an efficient way. Right now, we're still early a little bit from an adoption perspective that, first of all, like as board members, we want to make sure that, hey, people should start using AI first. But at least in bigger enterprises, AI cost is becoming the second biggest line item after salaries. And that's a big thing, guys, because at some point in time, all these big companies will have to start thinking about, hey, I'm spending a lot of things on AI, but A, does that reduce my headcount cost? B, how do I actually prove that the ROI is there? So there is a lot of investment going in thinking about optimization. There is a lot of investment going in thinking about that, hey, what is it that I can do to A, either reduce my AI cost, or B, take out more value from that AI. So there's a big category forming there, which is FinOps, which is even optimizations on each point that you can think about in that stack. How do I optimize to take more ROI? And that's a big category in itself. I think that this is an interesting one. It doesn't get talked about enough. I think one thing that I'm sure a lot of you have started seeing already is the amount of time and investment companies are doing to make sure that they rank up on Claude or GPT or anything else, right? And that is important because now agents are also becoming buyers. And if you take a step back, right, till few years back, the entire internet economy was built for people performing actions. Now it is getting built for agent performing actions, and because that's where we're going, I think someone said it before me really well, that hey, we're going from just taking out and retrieving to actually doing those actions, and agents is exactly what it is. Autonomous agents will exactly be that. So how do you re-architect the entire internet to make sure that you can actually not just extract information, but you can start taking action, and that requires a lot of middleware and infrastructure, right? So one is just obviously the SEO and the GAO play. SEO is completely getting changed to GAO, and that is one proof point of how the agent economy is building. The second one, if you think about as a buyer, right? Earlier, a bunch of you, and I'm sure there's still some time there because this is an emerging category, you're selling to a CTO, a VP of engineering, especially if it's a technical product. But now it's actually an agent who's evaluating your documentation. It's an AI agent who's evaluating what your technical infrastructure looks like, and so on and so forth. So how do you make sure that hey, all of the things that you've built to sell is built for agents and not for a human? And that requires a very different level of thinking. So that's the part that is, again, gaining a lot of momentum. I think apart from this, these are obviously some bigger categories, areas where we think there is a lot of potential to build companies. I'm going to spend some time on some of the other thesis areas. So those were more opportunities, gaps, and forces where we think why today middleware should be built, why it is the right time to build, why we think a lot of founders here should build in middleware. Some of the interesting thesis areas is, number one, around the agent-to-agent communication. I think I alluded to it a little bit where most of the companies are building agents now. I think I saw a bunch of demos as well. Almost everything was about agents. But if you think and step back and go to a $200 billion enterprise, they're building agents on CRM, they're building agents on finance, they're building agents on supply chain, and they're probably 100+ agents. How do you think about managing those agents together, right? And A2A protocol obviously came in, it will see adoption hopefully at some point in time. But there is an entire category of things that need to be done to make sure that, hey, these agents actually communicate with each other. There is ground truth associated with these agents, because that's a very big problem. Do you trust your finance agent, or do you trust your CRM agent? Like, I don't know. I don't know what ground truth they are actually, and we'll come to that context layer problem statement already, but I don't know what to trust on. How do I make sure that they're all compliant? How do I make sure these 100+ agents are not eating up my token cost and they're actually very, very efficient? So there's an entire bunch of things that need to be done on agent-to-agent infrastructure, and we are actively spending a lot of time on that. The other one is AI security. I think with all these AI agents coming on, this I think is one of the biggest ones. And AI security means two things. One is AI for security, which is essentially how do you make sure that your mean time to respond has actually increased and it's more real time because of AI, and there's a bunch of things that you can do there. The second one is the security for AI, right? Like how do you actually make sure there are guardrails, there are model security, and you have defenses amongst specific threats. We've started seeing some activity there already with the bigger platforms. For example, Palo Alto, I'm sure you guys have seen Palo Alto acquired this company called as, I think it was Protect AI, yes. And then SentinelOne acquired this company called as Prompt Security. Everyone, all these platforms are very actively thinking about that, hey, how do I make sure that now the threat vectors have increased, my attack surface has increased, it's become new. So how do I make sure that, hey, I'm actually covered for that? So that's the second big investment area for us. We are actively scouting companies here. We are thinking through what this means and what can be there. So this is, again, one area where we see a lot of investments happening. This is slightly tangent, but a very interesting one, so I thought I'll put it here. See, if you think about all how LLMs were created, right? The initial versions of LLMs were created and trained on web scale data. But for physical AI, there is no real data available like this. So there's a lot of work that is happening today on creating physical AI models. How do you make sure that you actually get your egocentric data? How do you make sure that you run teleoperations at scale? And there are massive, massive companies that have started to emerge in this space. I'll come to the India angle here later, but I think if anyone is working in this space and area, that this could be really big, because the global market, I think post LLMs, physical AI is one space which is seeing a lot of momentum, and there's a lot of opportunity to be created here. Why we? Why us? Why here? Right? I think that's one question. Personally, and I'll come to the fund later as well, but we we think about any opportunity, any space as that, hey, is there an advantage for Indian founders to be built on that space? We want to make sure, and unlike SaaS, I think we started very late in SaaS. I think Salesforce was early 2000s, and I think for Freshworks was 2021 as an IPO. In AI, we are not late, guys. I think we are on time and we see the momentum. I think this, obviously you have to be quiet here, but the momentum I saw outside was very, very encouraging. And I see founders, the quality of founders has been exceptional that we've seen in the last couple of years. People are building companies, global companies from day one, and then there is a lot of momentum that we are seeing. And especially in this category, right? Middleware and infrastructure is a very, very technical category. Why should Indian founders, and if you think about it, who's your buyer, right? For a technical and an infrastructure company, your buyer is a very technical one as well. A lot of times, you get purchased on your product merit, and I have no doubt today that the products coming out of Indian founders are first class, are global standards. A lot of times, these are also purchased by a lot of Indians, to be honest, outside. And I know it sounds funny, but I can see this in this room, but you get that first design partner. You get that first person who is ready to believe you. You go to some big company in the US, you will find, at least in the CTO or in the people who are buying infrastructure and middleware, you'll be able to exchange ideas, get that design partnerships very, very easily. And at least and this is just coming out of my own experience, we have invested a lot on middleware and infrastructure, and we have seen some best-in-class companies in our portfolio come from there. So I do believe that this as a category, go-to-market is slightly easier as compared to other categories because your product speaks for yourself. Probably you'll open source. I know a bunch of folks. I'll give you a star. I don't know where the founder is, but that was an interesting one. And I think people discover these products online, they try it out, and then they reach out to you. So your initial go-to-market actually gets solved a little bit. So this is something that we definitely believe in, that, hey, with the kind of technical talent we have in India, the kind of products that are getting built, we do believe that this is a category where there will be a lot of momentum coming out of India. I wanted to talk, and these are things, and these are just portfolio companies. Bunch of them you might have heard of, some you might not. But the reason I want to showcase this a little bit is how they started. And how did they make sure that, hey, they get that global go-to-market? I think that's an important one because that's what we feel, especially if you're founding from India, that is one thing that you need to get right, especially in the start. If we think about Composio, Karan and Soham are IT Bombay founders. They had this idea. I remember investing and leading their seed round in 23, and it was very different, guys, back then. They started by saying that, hey, integrations have to fundamentally change. The way the Workatos and MuleSofts of the world what they did for enterprise software, that has to change with LLMs. LLMs don't behave this way. That was their one-line thesis. There was hardly any product, but that was their one-line thesis. That one-line thesis kept on evolving, and then MCP came in. None of us could have actually thought about what MCP will look like in 2023. It came down, I think, mid-2024. And that changed the game, and that was a great tailwind for them to say that, hey, now people think about tool calling in a specific way. They thought about tool calling before tool calling was even a word. So I think these are the things that I am talking about, that, hey, take a step back, think about where the industry is going. What are those gaps, challenges that you see will arise, and start building towards it, because the world is changing very, very fast. If the thing has already happened, if the gap has already existed, then I think we are late already. I think the second one is Unify Apps. Unify Apps is started by Raji and Paviter. They were the CEO and CTO of a publicly listed company called as Sprinkler in the US. They came out. Their one-line thesis was that, hey, enterprise software, in enterprises, actually, their one-line thesis was that in enterprises, data is siloed across different systems. AI cannot work if you can't unify that data and build that context. From what we know as context layer today, that is, they also never use that word context layer, but that is something that they had started building towards already. They have built this entire enterprise stack where you have a data layer, you have an integration layer, then you have an agent workflow builder, and that is the kind of outcomes they're giving to enterprises. So again, I think it's like when the context layer article had come out, I sent it to the founder, and he was like, finally, we have a name of what we were building. We were struggling so bad, but now actually everyone understands. The third one is Poorvi. Poorvi, again, is founded by Rohit and Ayush. We had done their Series A couple of months back. Again, very interesting because I think maybe not many people know about it, but they started in observability in 2023. And there was nothing in production. What do you observe if there's nothing in production, right? So then they started moving left. They started thinking about AI Gateway. They started thinking about a bunch of other things. And now if you manage and marry the AI gateway and observability together, it makes so much sense today, right? So I think, again, an example of where founders felt that, hey, all the Datadogs and Neuralix of the world, the way they had existed in the cloud, what would that look like in the AI era? And that's what they started building and thinking about and iterated along the way. The other one is adopt. This is an interesting one, and the reason is that they came up with the thesis, again, repeat founders had sold a company to 6sense before, but they came up with this thesis that, hey, all these applications and enterprise software, in AI, they will have to completely and fundamentally change themselves. Every application wants to agentify themselves, and how do we do it in one click? So something that they invented and called is Zappy, which is zero-shot API extraction. So what they do is that, hey, you go into an enterprise software, whether it's consumer-facing or not, and then you create agents on top of it without actually integrating with the code base of the company. So that's what they are trying to build. The other one is Maxim. Again, Vaibhavi and Akshay came from Postman, Vaibhavi came from Google. And one of the things they had started seeing at Google was that, hey, none of these things will ever go in production. Unlike Poorvi, which started with observability, they had this thesis, hey, things cannot go in production unless you do evals. Though they started with an evals platform to say that, hey, because there are so many use cases, there are so many different kind of models that people are using, they will have to do evals and have an evals platform to make sure they can send things in production. And that's the product they're building, and they've expanded the scope a lot since then. This is just to show the overall, we have invested a lot in applications as well. We continue to invest. We've made more than 15 plus investments in the last 24 months. So very excited about where the world is right now and what we are able to, meaningfully do there. See a little bit about the fund. Not sure how much you know about Elevation. We are an early stage fund deploying out of our 8th fund, 530 million. I think the AUM should be much bigger with Misho now. It should be 3 billion plus. Bunch of IPOs historically started a lot more in consumer and fintech. So we're the first investors in Swiggy, Misho, Paytm, Urban Company, Make My Trip, and so on and so forth. But in the last couple of years, I think in the last 4 years, we've just been super, super active in AI. We are a cross-border team. What that means is this is one team, a few people here, a few people in the US. We want to make sure we are like a 24/7 customer support to our founders. So if the founders are in India, we help them here. If the founders are in the US, our team helps there. It's one team, it's not two different teams. And yeah, I think a lot of our founders start from India, and we love backing those founders because we want to make sure that they have a right shot at making a global company, like a few of the ones that I spoke about. So we want to make sure that we invest a lot in Indian founders, especially in technical areas, because we're seeing real momentum and real growth there. Yeah, this is the team. Some of us are here. Prerna is here. Vartika and a community team is here. But again, just reach out to any one of us if you have something interesting, if you want to share what you're building. There is also a QR code. We regularly do office hours, which is a no agenda. No, there needs to be an agenda, but it's not an investment pitch. There has to be an agenda, guys. So there's a small form on what you're building, and we do 20-minute chats. One of the team members will come up, talk to you about what we are seeing, talk to you about what you want to do, and exchange ideas. So this is something that we do regularly. Yeah, so I think I'll just leave it here that, hey, it is a great time to be investing in AI. It is a great time to be building in AI. It is a great time to be in AI in general. And no matter what anyone says, I am very, very sure, and that's what I'm betting my career on, to be very fair, that there'll be great companies that will come out of India. So hope you guys build and come partner with us. Thank you.